Merrin loved the sea. She loved the sound of the waves calling to her through her window. She dreamt every night of the mysteries that lay beneath. Her father was a fisherman. Each day he went out to sea, and each night Merrin waited at the rocky cliff edge, holding up a candle to guide him safely home. The two of them were poor. Their roof was leaky, and they sometimes went hungry. But as long as they had each other, Merrin knew they would be okay.
Song of the Deep is the very first game from GameStop's brand new publishing branch, Game Trust Games. GameStop is doing pretty much everything they can to ensure they have a future when games are eventually 100% digital. Their first publishing project is a game from Insomniac Games, you know, the makers of Ratchet & Clank and the Resistance series, and it's called Song of the Deep. And it's a new Metroidvania-style game, the likes of which don't get released too often these days. It's a fun, albeit flawed game that is certainly worth looking into given the low cost of entry. What impressed me the most about Song of the Deep was its incredible audiovisual presentation. This is really a stunning game to look at and to listen to. It looks like an illustrated children's book has come to life. The entire game takes place underwater, and the amount of colors that shine through each scene will take your breath away. The game just pops and comes alive with each new area you unlock. It's a beautiful game all around, and the audio complements the incredible visuals. The Celtic-inspired themes add an entirely unique element to the game, and the sound effects enhance the aquatic gameplay perfectly. The story, while not Oscar caliber, is extremely interesting. Long story short, you play as Merrin, whose father, a fisherman, tells her fantastical, almost fairy tale-like stories of his adventures of the sea every night before she goes to sleep. One day, her father doesn't come home, and Merrin dreams that he's being held captive under the sea. She quickly builds a submarine and goes off on an adventure to rescue him, and quickly discovers that everything her father has told her is true. It's a very simple yet surprisingly powerful story about a daughter's love for her father and the incredible adventure she embarks on. The story is never bogged down, and it's a perfect example of limited environmental storytelling with only a few cutscenes and narrations thrown in for good measure. The Metroid-inspired gameplay is fun, although it never reaches the level of maturity I would have liked. And I don't mean blood and gore. What ends up happening here is you just start to feel powerful enough to really explore the environments, and then the game is over. Now, this was done by design choice, not due to the game's length, as this is actually a fairly long game, clocking in at around 10 to 12 hours. New weapon upgrades are attached directly to your submarine as you find them. You have access to a hook or claw, which can not only be used to defend the submarine from enemies, but you can also pick up items and trigger certain environmental obstacles like switches. There are also a wide variety of torpedoes available, which can all be upgraded via an in-game store, which uses coins you find all over the environment. Each new item you find allows you to access areas you couldn't access before, and as a whole, the exploration elements are just fantastic. Combat is also interesting, although there aren't that many different enemy types. I like the fact that you can customize your ship in such a way to fit your playing style. Prefer to use torpedoes over the claw? No problem, you can go ahead and upgrade that first. The problem with Song of the Deep is that puzzles repeat themselves far too often. There are two different types of puzzles in the game primarily. One's where you have to get a bomb and drag it to a certain location, and the other is to locate the head of a statue. The bomb puzzles are simple enough at the beginning of the game, but later on you need to freeze them in order for them to float, and if anything touches them, they explode, so you have to be ultra careful. Many puzzles are designed in such a way that you're guaranteed to play through them at least a few times in order to get the timing right. The statue puzzles also start off really simple, where you just have to locate the head of the statue and then return it to the base, but later on you need to find, for example, potentially the torso. Throw in the fact that Marin can leave her sub and is forced to do so later on in the game in order to locate certain statue pieces, and these elements start to bring down the pacing. Thankfully, the light reflection puzzles are a lot more interesting, but overall, the puzzles as a whole aren't the game's strongest feature, and it's a shame too, because if just a few different types of puzzles would have been added, the whole game would have ended up being that much better. I should also mention that there are only 2 real bosses in the game, and yes, they're as large as the screen, but it's a bit of a disappointment to only battle 2 bosses. There is one mini-boss that is repeated around 5 times throughout the game, but he's terribly repetitive. There is one other aspect of the game that I found kind of annoying, and that's the trophy support. This one completely shocked me. Song of the Deep doesn't feature a full complement of trophies. There are only 10 trophies in the game and no platinum. How the heck is that possible for a game like this? I consider this one of the biggest letdowns in the history of the achievement/trophy systems. I mean, think of it, this is the kind of game that is begging for players to play through it multiple times, do a speed run, beat it with the least amount of items or equipment available, and then of course get the 100% run. But all of that is missing here, and it's really perplexing why. Song of the Deep scratched an itch I've had for a long time now. I absolutely love Metroidvania style games. However, this one, for some reason or another, it left a lot to be desired. It's a good game, it's just not great. There was a lot of potential here that never seemed to be capitalized on. With a little more thought behind it, this very easily could have been one of the best games of 2016. But now I fear it's going to be remembered as a game that was just so close to being something special.